Welcome everyone to Workforce Solution Capital Area's Career Awareness Webinar Series. My name is Natalie Obregon, and I work with Workforce Solutions here as an education outreach specialist, so we can bring to you some great information about in-demand industries and in our region. So I'm really, really excited that you're able to join us today. We have a great panel for you all today, and we want to talk to the three professionals with CERT and Affinity to get some more information about the different career pathways and the current experiences in the game development industry. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. We are very excited to have you join us. We prepared some questions for you to be interviewed, and Mr. Bailey Holsey here with Round Rock ISD will be the one to ask the questions. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and start the introductions. Go ahead.
So first tell us, sorry. I'll ask, first tell us about yourself and what is your role at CERT and Affinity?
See, I'm so excited. I just jumped right in and all over everybody. I'm sorry about that. My name is Allison Alden. I am the Marketing Relationship Manager at CERT and Affinity. Full disclosure, I did not aspire to a career in gaming. I am a huge gamer by hobby, and actually started working as a receptionist, then a secretary, and then a legal assistant in the criminal prosecutions for 10 years. During that time, I obtained my associate's degree in paralegal studies from Pima Community College, that's in Tucson, Arizona. See, I'm not even from Texas, and a bachelor's of science degree in public administration from Northern Arizona University. I also became nationally certified as a paralegal during that time. After I did that for a while, I shifted my focus to working in child protective services as a case manager for a couple of years. But after doing that, realized I missed the legal side of the house. So I applied for a job at CERT and Affinity. I spent 4 years volunteering with one of the largest run Halo fan sites outside of the official Halo channels called Griffball Hub. I ran their social media, was one of the major admins on the site, and I was a key player with the industry events. And I like to point out that I swung the band hammer judiciously. I transitioned my familiarity with video games as a hobby into my legal and project management background, and I've been at CERT and Affinity now for almost 3 years. Don't let the title fool you. I also do assist on the legal and business development fronts and really whatever else they put me to work with. And that's me.
Cool, that's a lot of stuff.
And I'll take over next. So afternoon, y'all. My name is Garin Richards. I'm an engineer at CERT and Affinity. My specific specialization is user interface. So I've been SCA for about 2 years now. I am also not from Texas, but I really love y'all's food here. I'm really digging the Tex-Mex, that's great. I came from Utah, although I am a native of Hawaii. So I got my education in Utah at the University of Utah. I did my bachelor's of computer science there, and then followed that up with a master's in game engineering following that. And that was about the summer 2018. And immediately after getting out of school, I landed here in beautiful Austin, Texas. Been loving it to death. And yeah, so, my role at CA is I deal with a lot of the things on our screens, pictures, text, buttons. Game development is a large team with lots of specializations, but my little corner is I really care deeply about how the pause menu works, that little part of video games. Cool. So that's what I do.
Yeah, well, it goes into the whole package, it seems like. Garin, just a quick question. You said you did a master's in game engineering. Did I get that right?
That is correct. Yeah, there's a really decent program out of the University of Utah where they offer a whole master's degree and program for that. And yeah.
Was most of that online or in person?
Oh, that was in person. My specific grad program was a whole studio simulation 2-year. And so we brought projects from pitch to completion and ship. And cool. That was the whole 2 years of that.
Okay. Thanks.
Excellent. And then to round out the trio here, my name is J. Goldberg. Yes, my first name is just the single letter. And I grew up in a family-owned arcade and basically knew I wanted to get into gaming because of that. So after collecting quarters for a bunch of years, I focused on art and programming in high school back in New York. And then I eventually got a bachelor's of science in digital media at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And that well-rounded program taught me everything from how to pitch, how to create, how to publish, and how to market video games. So I actually had a core background in 3D art and animation, but I shifted gears to focus more on community marketing, which is now pretty much my official title as the head of community for Certain Affinity, which essentially spans marketing, PR, social media, a little bit of everything, but basically talking to all of our fans about how awesome we are, how awesome they are, and why we want to share all these games together. And I've been doing this for about 15 years now, spanning about 10 different companies all over the United States. And I'm just really happy to be a part of Austin, Texas now.
Cool. It's really exciting to have all three of you on the calls to see like different backgrounds and different aspirations as children growing up. You know, Jay, it sounds like you've always wanted to do this, and Allison, you haven't. So
I wanted to be a weather person, okay? Let me tell you, but it has changed quite a bit over the course of my life.
I'm kind of the same way. I've been bouncing around, which is great. I love where I'm at now. And I, in my experience, every job you have and every experience you have throughout growing up and really your life can contribute to who you are as a person. So I've seen positive things come out of all of my experiences. But Jay, just a quick question off the side for you. When you were just getting started in gaming and you knew you wanted to be a game developer, where did you turn to first? Did you start to develop some really small things like on Apple devices or Pygame in Python, or where's a place that people can get started making games like over the summer or something?
Sure. So I actually got started back on like kind of the Apple IIs with the MEC system, if you remember, the Minnesota Educational Computer Company. And luckily my middle school, my high school both had computing classes, which taught us little bits about programming, art, and kind of everything in between. And that got me started. And then I kind of kept going down that path when I was looking for a college to go to. And when I saw what Drexel's specific program was of digital media, that allowed me to focus on everything in gaming, because when I first went to college, I didn't know where I wanted to end up. I just knew I wanted to be a part of the industry. So that allowed me to learn art, animation, programming, marketing, branding, everything in between, and then graduate and then make my decision. And that's kind of how I ended up. I started art and animation, and then I shifted back over to marketing. So, and I'm very happy with where I've ended up.
Awesome. So that kind of leads us into the next question. How did you decide to become a whatever your occupation is, which is, let me do another side question. I just wanted to get y'all's occupations straight in my head, because I'm not a business person. I don't know all the sort of auxiliary business aspects of a big company like this, or a company in general. So Allison, you're in marketing as well, like Jay. Is that similar to his position or different?
So my position is actually pretty different. We work very closely together on a lot of different programs, and that's what's interesting about the business side of the house when it comes to game development, is you do have a lot of overlapping. So I assist on the marketing side, and we're doing a transition actually right now where I'm doing more on the legal and business development side, and a lot of the marketing is now starting to move towards Jay. So
Okay.
it is very interesting because you are exposed to so many different shades of the company and get to see so many different sides of it. So you learn quite a bit, and you have to really be comfortable, being diverse, wearing the different hats, being able to juggle lots of different projects and switch gears very, very quickly.
So it sounds like a company like this would be a really good fit for somebody who has a diverse array of talents and interests.
I think so. I think the nice thing about having the diverse interests is just that you get to try so many new things, and you really get to kind of dial down on what it is that you enjoy and what you're good at.
Garin and Jay, would you say that's pretty accurate?
I think so. Y'all, these two on the other side of the office, they're doing the real work, right? They're making sure, I have stuff to do, that I have work to do. But yeah, they are definitely the ones holding the house down. I show up, I write code, but I got to shout out to these two for making sure I have code to write. So.
And then I ask him what the code means and to give me a screenshot of it. And then I tell everybody how awesome it is.
There you go. Yeah, he's the words man. He's the words man.
Very, very collaborative. It sounds like you never do work on an island.
No, and that's something I've learned over because I've worked at a number of different companies over the years, and that is the one thing about the game industry is you really get to know every single person in your company. You may not work with them every single day, but you will eventually talk to pretty much every single person that's there.
Awesome, good deal. So yeah, the question was, how did you? I got it. Sidetracked. My bad. How did you decide to become a community manager for
Yeah.
Jay? Right? Did I say it right?
Yeah, so that was my official title when I started doing community was community manager, and then there's levels, of course, through that. So, but what I actually started out was a QA and customer support job, and then I took that, and while I was doing those jobs, because that's a good way also for individuals to get into the industry and start to learn about how games are made if they haven't made them themselves or gone to school yet about it. And you can learn. I will say our QA testers are some of the most amazing people. Without them, you would not have a game. So, but it's a really great way of learning what you like about a game studio and about the company in general, and then you can make a decision of which path do you want to try and focus on. And that worked out really well for me because I just love sharing my passion, talking to people, and now I get paid to do it for a living. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Pretty interested in your position, Jay. I've never heard anything like that. I'm teaching a senior level engineering course, and one of the aspects of it is stakeholder analysis. So, you know, as you develop your project, you're thinking about all the stakeholders, anybody who has a stake in the game. So it sounds like that's kind of what you're focusing on. You're talking to, you're communicating with, and managing relationships with all those people, the QA, the testers, the community as a whole. Is that kind of right?
So I'm mostly the mediator between the company and the players, or the company and other companies, which is partially also Allison with BizDev. But what generally the role you were talking about is more of like a producer or a project manager, that's keeping everything that's going on behind the scenes just running and smooth and in order. And we have lots of amazing producers at Certain Affinity.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. So Garin, how did you decide to become an engineer? Game engineer,
So
right?
yeah. My story starts when I was 7 years old. No, I wasn't that forward thinking. So I knew I wanted to be a programmer. Since I was really into computers. I like taking things apart. And when I was a teen, I was like, okay, I want to do this programming thing. I want to do this computer science thing, right? And so for the majority of my middle school, high school years, I spent a lot of time, in our introductory CS courses that my school was providing. At the same time, I also was like, oh, I'm doing this computer thing, programming, I'm writing stuff in C#, all those other languages, things like that. I was really interested in how they worked. So I also had a career in, just IT support. I did that all through high school and college and grad school. That was the way I kept myself busy when I didn't have homework to do. And it was for me, about halfway through my undergraduate, working on my Bachelor's of Science in CS, that I always liked video games, right? What kid doesn't like games? And for a while, I was like, maybe that'd be a fun hobby, but, maybe my main calling is something more traditional, right? Because I really enjoyed the problem solving and things like that. But then, at my immediate school, I saw that we had a very, very good program, a very good undergraduate that led into a very well-ranked graduate program. And I thought like, okay, hey, if I can stay here in state, because that's also where my family was, and, pursue this other venture while also still keeping the computer science title of the degree, yeah, why not? Let's do that. And I never looked back on that decision. So, ever since, oh gosh, I'm trying to come up with the, dates now, but like 2014, 2013, it's just been games for me. And, I continued my IT work on the side. I worked for like the computer labs on our school campus, and in my meantime, I was doing lots of homework and lots of personal projects. And so I came to CA fresh out of academia and IT. Your typical, you apply after you're done with school. And so they caught me, living on 2-3 hours of sleep for 6-7 years of my life. They got fresh, bushy-eyed Garin, first day at the studio. And yeah, so that's, I did a lot of independent projects. I worked with a lot of, did a few internships while, in Utah, working with game companies there. And then when it came time for me to be like, okay, I want to contribute to something large. And so when I brought into my search, I saw this wonderful town of Austin. And then Certain Affinity had a place in my heart just because, I'm a fan of their previous work. So we're at that part of history now where all of a sudden fans of the games they made in the studio are coming to work for the studio, right? And, threw my head in the application pile, and it's been a love story ever since. And I've been enjoying it immensely since then. So, yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. You said something that I found pretty interesting. When you were in high school, you were working with IT. How did you get that gig?
Yeah. So I just asked. That is not me trying to make it sound fancy. No, I literally just asked. We have a computer lab. We had an IT person that was watching all of those, all the
At the high
Macs
school?
and at the high school. Yeah. And I was like, hey, can I help you out on, after school and get, learn about how this stuff works, how this stuff runs. And that's how I began to just like, I was beginning to understand how to program these computers, but like, how do they work? How do they function? And I was, that was just really great, because then later in my, college career, when it came time to say like, we need to get to the nitty gritty of the hardware, I'm like, oh, okay, I've fixed dozens of graphics cards in my time. I kind of know how that stuff works. So, it was, I was very fortunate I just walked right up to our staff and like, hey, we have a lot of computers here. Who manages all this stuff? Do they need an extra hand after school? I'm waiting for my little sister to get off school anyway. I got an extra hour or two. Like, I want to learn. So that's what I did.
I think that a lot of my students will find that really inspiring. I'm glad you had that experience.
Yeah.
Cool. And then Allison, you shared a lot about how you decided to join your occupation. Do you want to add anything to that?
I will keep it brief because I have had a very interesting journey to get to where I am today. Like I said, I started out working as a receptionist at the local prosecutor's office in Tucson, Arizona. Worked in legal for 10 years. Worked in, actually, I worked for government for about a total of 14 years. And I had been following Certain Affinity since, I want to say about 2014. In working with Griffball Hub, I would come out to Austin every year for RTX because we always had a booth out there. So I would take vacation from one job to come out here and essentially do another job, but it was all on our own time, and we were all volunteering our time because we all had so much fun running the site and leagues. And if you don't know what Griffball is, I highly recommend checking it out on Halo. It is essentially rugby with swords and hammers, and it is one of the most fun game types that is in Halo. We worked very closely as Griffball Hub with 343, being able to come up with maps and create maps and getting the right stuff in there and the right settings and all that. So it was very much a fun time in my life. And I saw actually Max Hoberman, who was the president of the company at the time, well, obviously now too, but at that time was giving a talk on Halo Master Chief Collection because they just announced it. It was at RTX, and I thought, this guy seems pretty cool. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and realized, that he ran a Certain Affinity, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna follow them both on Twitter. And in, let's see, what was about summer 2017, they posted up what my position, the position that I ended up getting, posted up on Twitter, and I looked at the job post and said, I can take the experience that I have and the things that I've done, and I can talk them into showing them that this does translate. And a lot of the things I've been doing within my government sphere and the jobs that I have been working, they do translate. And
Cool.
here's how I'm going to show you how. So, I laugh and say 6 interviews later, because it was all video interviews and everything, because I was in another state. I got the job offer, and I never thought I worked for a video game company, and it has been a blast. It has been probably in a lot of ways, one of the most challenging things, but also one of the most exciting things too. And that's why my story is all, don't ever think that just because you didn't start off in the game industry means that you can't get into it, because I was as far from the game industry as you possibly could be. So you just experience, it helps.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you were at a place where you understood your strengths and how you could leverage those strengths for the good of this particular company, and then you
Very
pushed
much
yourself
so.
to them.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
cool. That's awesome. I think that's very powerful. Okay, so I'm just gonna field this to everyone, and you guys might have an idea of who wants to answer it. Please describe your typical workday and or what are your main responsibilities?
Sure, I can jump in on that first. So for me, I guess the best part about my typical job is that it's very atypical. Every single day is different. It really is. I can plan out weeks and months and even a year ahead, but there could be a news story or there could be a tweet from a really popular streamer, and then all of a sudden my entire day changes. So but my day typically does revolve around finding out the best ways to market our company and finding out the best ways to get people to know our company. And also, I even help a little bit with our recruiting team to make sure that we can hire outstanding individuals from around the country, around the world, whoever's eligible to work for us, to make sure that they can make it here to Austin, Texas, or our new studio up in Toronto, Canada, and come join us. So my typical day, I mean, I'm at my keyboard doing this basically the entire day or on the phone talking to various people, but it really changes every single day, whether it's helping with video creation or working on a text document or getting a pitch ready for or some marketing screenshots. You never really know it, and that's kind of the fun and why I still do it today.
I wonder if there are any positions at the company that are more routine, where your typical day is more to be expected, like that.
I would toss that question to Garin because I feel like on the development side, they have a lot more of the routine than on the business side because we're all over the place. Like we said, we pretty much do what we're told. And if something comes down and your day can completely change. So I'm throwing that one to Garin.
All right, thank you. These two, their days are all over the place, so my day can stay the same. So I appreciate that, right? Yeah, so shout out to the, 3 or 4 engineers watching. So my day is pretty cut and dry, for your typical, even just software engineering. I wake up and it is a very, everyone's, contributing to this massive game together. And so I wake up, get the latest version of our game. And, that usually takes some time. Thank you, work from home and Spectrum Internet. So that takes a minute to build, to download. While that's going, I'm making some coffee. So I'm making myself, a cup of that. And while that's beginning to finish up, we have our morning meetings, which are morning meetings are very brief stand-up updates. I informed the rest of for me specifically, the UI team. What are my goals for the day? Is there anything blocking my progress? Do I need anything? Do I need an adult, AKA a producer, to step in to get me some answers for some questions? And after that's all good to go, it's headphones on and I'm just writing code, fixing, fixing problems, closing out tasks and just working on features or, your typical game development. And if I'm fortunate, it's a pretty meeting-free day and I can just get some things done. And around the end of the day, I circle back around, I update with my team, tell them what went well. If there's anything, hey, I see that, this thing I want to get started on is probably blocked over here by this other team, this other person. We should go, converse with them, see what we can do to make that smoother. And yeah, just that last update and, just sign off for the day and one more get latest so I can let Spectrum, pull down the rest of the game for me overnight. And yeah, that's pretty much my day-to-day 4 or 5 days of the week. Your pretty standard software stuff.
Cool. Quick question. When you are communicating with your team, what kind of tools are you using? Do you do all the bugs through Jira or GitHub, or are you using Slack to talk to each other?
So Zoom and Slack are surgically implanted in me. So those two are directly on my taskbar at all times. All these meetings that we're having is right over Zoom right now. And any, hour to hour, minute to minute conversations are happening in Slack. We do use Jira for our task tracking, but that may differ from team to team and their tools that they need. But yeah, and if we were in the office, all those meetings would just be regular old, everybody just find a conference room and huddle around for 5 to 10 minutes. They call them stand-ups, which means everyone's standing. Just get out what you're doing and what you need as soon as possible. But yeah, those are the tools of the trade right now.
Cool. And Allison, did you want to talk about your typical workday and responsibilities, or should we go?
I think I am totally fine moving on. I would say a lot of mine just mirrors Jay's. It kind of differs day to day with covering as many areas that I cover. It differs, and just be open to change and be flexible. That's the biggest advice I have when it comes to this.
Good deal. I think those are good skills anywhere. Which leads into the next question. What academic, technical, or soft skills are required for your position? And again, I'll fill this to anybody.
You know, I'll start off with this one. Academically, you know, the typical path, right, is through a regular, you know, just a college path of, you know, a undergraduate degree and in some rare instances a graduate degree. But, you know, just a quick side note, that is not exactly required. You know, when we're looking for new developers or people to join the team, we don't require that you do have that, you know, next to your name, but we look for, you know, what kind of things have you made? You know, what projects have you made, not even for anybody else, not for any big clients, but like what game did you make and did you bring that to fruition, right? So, you know, as a game engineer, you know, we're looking for people that can, you know how to program, how to use the various tech stacks and engines and all those tools that come with, you know, being a programmer well. They have to, you know, have a good knack for problem solving, right? Games are very tricky. There's very small edge cases. You have to learn how to hunt those down and come up with a solution, hopefully sooner rather than later. And, you know, we're also wanting people that have the ability to communicate effectively, right? Especially right now, I'm working from home. I no longer have the ability to stand up, walk to my coworker's desk and be like, you know, hey, we have this very specific problem, this very specific line, and talk this out. Like, no, this has to be done over text, has to be done over voice. And, you know, one last thing I want to, you know, stress is that there is a difference between speaking to another engineer and there's a difference speaking, like for me, to a designer or to an artist or someone, a non-technical role, right? You have to learn how to break down these complex problems into verbiage and language that you both can understand and come to a solution with. So yeah, if you can, you know, if you're able to have, you know, explain a technically difficult problem to your friend whom, you know, maybe only uses the internet for Facebook and Instagram, you're doing great if you can communicate that well. So,
I
yeah.
just want to piggyback on that a little bit too, is because Garin kind of touched on it, but soft skills, your soft skills are so one of the biggest things that I can push, regardless of whether you're development, your business side, you know, whatever side of the house you're on. You know, having your soft skills, excuse me, which can be, you know, one of the biggest things, communication. Like Garin said, if a lot of times I have to take the legal contract as our development agreement, break it down into digestible chunks for both our senior leadership and for the dev team who's assigned to it, and tell them literally it's called the what you need to know. So it's pulling out what are the things that you as a developer, or what are the things that you as senior leadership, or you as accounting, or you as finance, any of those things, what are the things that are going to be imperative for you to know in your job, so you don't have to read through a 40-page contract or those kinds of things. And knowing how to communicate at all different levels, whether it's from with an engineer who's very technical, to another business person, to, you know, even to like an executive level. That's I think it's one of the biggest things that speaking with our senior leadership team is that's important to them is, you know, speaking to writing communications to executives of a company is going to be very different than writing communications to your peer or to someone else within your work product. Because a lot of times our executives, they're busy, you know, they've got the entire company to run, and it's how do you take the information and write it in a brief, short synopsis and give them the information that they need and that they need quickly. So definitely soft skills. Like I will like pound that into the ground as much as possible, because that was one of the biggest selling points that I had coming from, you know, a area that was nothing related to video game development, aside from just, hey, this is my hobby and this is what I enjoy doing and this is fun for me, to now this is what I get paid to do. Was just soft skills is going to be one of your biggest selling points. And I'll be done now.
And I just want to add to that as well, a little bit on the academic side. When I went to go choose a college, for instance, I specifically was looking for a program that was a Bachelor of Science, because I wanted to make sure that I got the well-rounded education that focused not just on the game specific portion of what it was. And granted, look, there's some amazing universities that focus just on that. And we even have a bunch of people at our studio that have gone to those colleges, like SMU Guildhall, Full Sail, any of the Academy of the Arts. There's an amazing range of great universities that focus just on that. But I wanted to make sure, let's just say gaming isn't what I actually wanted to do, even though I knew I wanted to do it since I was 5 years old. I wanted to have a backup. And so that allowed me to focus a little more on education. And just in case, maybe I wanted to do something else. I also want to stress what Allison pointed out of soft skills, and one of the best ways to do it when you're young to acquire those skills, and this is something I look for in the marketing and PR fields, is somebody who's worked a retail job or a food service job or something where you're basically having to deal with people who you have no idea who they are, and you can just deal with conflict and understand how to talk to somebody.
Receptionist, I'm telling you.
There you
100%.
go. And all of those types of jobs where you talk to people on a daily basis, you will gain the most amazing set of soft skills of learning how to talk and how to problem solve and how to be a better person yourself and a better communicator than you would literally taking public speaking classes and PR classes. I would highly recommend, if you have the time and the ability, get one of those front-facing, public-facing jobs now while you can, and then focus on a career as you continue. And granted, those are great careers as well, but they help you get those soft skills that you may not have.
Really good advice. You don't hear that very much. Hey, go be a waiter, go work in retail. Most high school students are like, I have to go work at Bahama Bucks or whatever. I didn't mean to throw them under the bus, but I have to go work at this job that I do not hope to be my career. And they just think it'll give them some money to pass the time to go into college. But I'm with you. The jobs that I had growing up in restaurants and stuff really, really boosted my confidence and personal communication skills and all of those super important things that make you well-rounded. And you're right, you don't get that in class. There's no class that's going to teach you how to communicate to lots of different people on your team, on your diverse team, like you other two guys are talking about. I think another good way of doing that is clubs. Maybe when you're running a project, you're working on a project and you have to talk to everybody who's involved in the club. If there's a game development club or something like that, you guys can jump into that. I had a quick question on the academic side. Are there people at y'all's, you say studio instead of company?
Yes.
Are there people at y'all's studio who have not gone to college, who do not have a bachelor's?
Yes,
You guys are
actually, there are several people. In fact, our president and co-founder Max is one of the biggest ones to say, you know what, I went and got my bachelor's degree in photography, and then I went to go work for Bungie, and then I decided I wanted to branch off and open my own company. So it's one of those things where, is it a good thing to have? Of course, it's always, schooling is schooling, but it's also, experience is good too. And going to community college, getting your I am one of the biggest proponents of that, because that's what I did. Going to community college, get your basic classes done, figure out what you want to do before you're paying the cost of a full scale university.
Especially now, it's all
And I mean, I got my bachelor's degree when I was working full time. I went to school full time and worked full time, and it is hard. Like, I will 100% say that, and God knows I don't want to do it again. But it can be important in what you're doing, and it does promote a certain set of skills, but it's not a necessary thing. There's a lot of ones where you can just get it through just experience. Like Aaron said, get out and make some gains.
Yeah. Can I quickly emphasize just a little bit of that, right? So, I work alongside people who, didn't have the specific path that I did. They just spent a lot of time, learning their craft on their own. And, that is saying something about a person. When someone tells me, yeah, here's this idea of a game I had, here's the original, like, I wrote it on a piece of paper, a sticky note, and here it is launched on the App Store. That says volumes about them. And in some cases, a little bit more than a degree that they do have. And so, I don't think these degrees are necessarily are required at all. And I don't want any students to think that, oh, I have to go to school, I have to go and get a CS degree and spend all this money. Like, no, for some people that path is for them. But for some people, that path is just them downloading a free engine or opening up YouTube and just making something. And you just, And when you go to start applying to those places, if you can articulate your process behind that, why did you do this? Or more importantly, what did you learn from project to project? How did you apply that to the next time around? That can speak oftentimes much more volumes more than the education section on that resume. In all honesty.
Projects.
Yes,
Projects
absolutely.
over education. Cool. Okay, so next, number 6, what ideas, materials, or programs should a teacher, for all the teachers out there, be using in the classroom to prepare a student for a career in game development?
So I was going to actually hand this to Garin because he was starting to go down that path with his last answer when he mentioned the free licenses. Would you like to take this, Garin?
Yeah. So this question, I like to think of, what if I were, a student today? Like, what kind of things would I want? I've only been out of school for just a few years now, but it feels like a decade ago. But if I were, just in, elementary, middle school, high school, and all that stuff, I think what I would have wanted is just give me that opportunity to explore if I had the urge. I was very fortunate to have a school district with a computer lab. And, I could go around and tinker on there. And that was insurmountable and so beneficial to just, my curiosities, right? Like, so, what I would recommend is like, hey, teachers, give your students a way to explore these avenues, right? As far as I'm concerned right now today, I don't think these major game engines or game technologies that you're seeing on TV and all the cool trailers require a big investment fee or big, there's no credit card. You can download the Unreal Engine is the name of a big popular one for free and just start making stuff. And there's such a wealth of info about that. And if it is something that a school or a class wants to be more maybe a bit more constructed and not so free form, there are educational licenses, there are educational programs for teachers to follow and like to to introduce that into their curriculum. So yeah, I mean, just overall, just if you if you have kids that are interested in this thing, give them that way to explore, those laptops with the basic Unity engine or something for them to tinker on. So opportunity, I think, is really important.
Are you Team Unity or Team Unreal?
I started as Team Unity. That was where I cut my teeth. That's where I started. But nowadays, I'm an Unreal man. Nowadays, I am an Unreal man. It is.
That's what you'd recommend to beginners?
For beginners, I personally would recommend Unity.
Gotcha.
Specifically Unity. It's very quick. It's much simpler. They can start seeing things immediately, and that rush of progress is probably what you're going to need in that very beginning. So definitely Unity for beginners.
And then Unreal later.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, cool. Number 7, what are the positive aspects of your job?
I mean, I can take this first, which is, and I kind of brought this up earlier, but to me, every single day is different. I like that I don't have a normal routine every day. I'm the kind of person where I've pretty much always lived my life of just trying to find the next thing to do, and trying to find what excites me and makes my passion shareable with others. And to me, this is the best part of what I do on a daily basis, is that I get to work with amazing people like both of them, which I'm hoping on the Zoom call they're on my sides, because otherwise I got a little awkward. But seriously, the best thing about working at all these various studios or companies or wherever you end up working at is you find the people who you connect with immediately, and you find the people that make your job easier. And not because they do your work, but because you know how to talk to them, you know how to work together, you know their strengths and their weaknesses, and you pick each other up. So I love just connecting with people, both in the studio, outside the studio, and giving me the opportunity to share my passion with the rest of the world, because not everybody gets a chance to do that. And to be in that spot for me is incredibly positive.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with that. Getting to work with such phenomenal people, getting to, I've never been one to be able to just a steady 9 to 5, know what I'm going to do when I come in. I like to have challenge. I like there to be different things to do in my day. And I like being able to work with all the people I work with, they're phenomenal people. And, you know, the fact that I can finally say I can be myself in a job, in a position where before I worked so many different places, I couldn't talk about video games. Nobody knew about video games. Nobody wanted to talk about that with me. And now I work somewhere where I can do that. And that's such a big passion of mine that, you know, we have, and I'm just going to throw this out there because this is my favorite thing, is that we have within the Destiny game, we have an actual, you know, group at work that we have our Destiny nights, and I have people to play with, and we're doing all these, you know, missions and quests and stuff like that. And I've never worked anywhere where I've had that experience. So I think being able to have that, being able to have people who share my interests is one of the coolest things about working here. So that's just me.
Sounds like everyone's a gamer at the studio.
Yeah, and I also want to quickly add, you know, our industry is definitely one of those industries and those jobs where everyone truly wants to be there every day, giving their 100%. Everyone wants to make great products, great games that they want to play too. And so I consider myself incredibly fortunate to be working, you know, alongside such creative, funny, you know, I hang out with these people after work all the time, you know, individuals that just come to work ready to give 110%, and we're ready to make really cool stuff. You know, so for me personally, you know, of course, the engineer in me is all into all this tech and all this cool stuff I get to make on a daily basis. But truly, the shining point for me is I get to work with people who truly care about their job, who truly care about the things they make. And you see that in our finished products. And that's my favorite part.
Yeah, that's exciting. The old engineering curriculum, in general, from what I've seen, tends to focus on problems, especially if it leans mechanical, civil, biomedical, those kinds of more altruistic careers. But you know, I think recently they've been updating that focus to make sure that problem projects are trying to either solve problems or meet opportunities. There's a vocabulary shift there. So I feel like if you go, you know, digging wells and building bridges, you'll have a different time doing all of that than if you were to go and make something fun that people are going to enjoy. It's cool. It's cool either way, I think, but it's neat to see y'all's perspective. I think it's different from what the students are getting in school. All right, number 8. We already talked about this a little bit. It says what different technologies are required to do your job. So we talked about on the project management side, you got Zoom and Slack and Jira maybe. And then on the technical side, you've got the Unity and Unreal and stuff like that. Is there anything y'all want to add to those?
I would say just basic programs like, you know, Microsoft Office, Google and Google Suite with Google Docs, Google Sheets, all the lovely Googles, you know, and even so far as, you know, learning how to use a copy machine, because we do still use those, you know, learning how to use a multi-line telephone if you're going to be covering the reception desk, which I still occasionally do when we're in the office, you know, just little things like that may not seem like they're big game dev things, but they're pretty, you know, they're pretty essential to what we do.
You know, in addition to what, you know, I spoke previously about these different game technologies and game engines and things like that, you know, but one thing I want to also emphasize is that, you know, what other, you know, all these kids are on Discord now. I think Discord's a big one right now. That is, I coordinate a lot of stuff via Discord and through these chat applications, you know, when it comes to, you know, out of work personal projects of mine. And so if they're already on Discord learning how to use all these channels and videos, they're halfway there. They're halfway there. So, you know, don't be daunted, you know, don't feel like you have to become a master of these big complicated game engines because your favorite games are made in these engines. And if your first game doesn't look like, you know, Halo or something, that's not the end of the world. You're starting somewhere. So yeah. But yeah, so, you know, just those different, you know, messaging applications and learning how to communicate. I wanted to make sure that was said.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, and just to add, a really great thing for any folks that might do any sort of art-based programs, there's obviously Adobe Photoshop is kind of the king of everything, but there's tons of free examples out there. You can even go as low as paint.net. There's GIMP, which is a great free image editing program just like Photoshop. I actually do a lot of work in GIMP just because it's simple and quick sometimes. So little things like that, by taking you're able to take your napkin drawing and then scan it in and then make it all pretty and send it off to somebody and say, okay, this is what we're doing. There you go. So I also recommend that, on top of course, I think, again, Microsoft Office, Excel, all that, and knowing how to do some basic formulas in Excel can help you a ton later in life. I don't think people realize how even just learning the sum command, SUM, in Excel can make you look incredible in 5 minutes. So
Those are really, really good points. So a lot of people don't think about that. They think Excel is for, accountants or data people, and then Photoshop and GIMP. And I use an application online called Mural for things like that. Those are for artists or designers. But I definitely see now after you pointed that out, that could be very useful for anybody. Just mock up a quick design and say, this is what I'm thinking. It's basically like a sketch pad, but it's going to be a lot prettier. And I'm all about spreadsheets too. All right, cool. So how else, this is number 9, how else can a student get involved with the game development in general while they are still in school? We talked about this a little bit. Is there anything you want to add?
Ahead,
I can jump
No.
in first if you'd
Yeah,
like.
you go first.
So I think, to me, because the amount of social technology that's come online in even the past 10 years has been incredible. Like when I was in college, literally the only thing we had was the Facebook, and like AOL chat rooms and ICQ and IRC. But now there's, like Garin mentioned before, there's online clubs and Discords just about like creating your own games. Join those. There's Facebook groups. Join those. There's general forums out there for just about everything. Join those. Your favorite developers, you may not even know who they are, but I bet if you look on LinkedIn or look on Twitter, you'll be able to find some of your favorite developers. And if you go to them with actual educational questions and not just criticism, and by the way, constructive criticism is totally fine. Normal criticism, not fine. But if you just reach out to somebody on social media, we have never been this connected as a society as we are in 2020. And it's a great way just to get involved with game development, is play the games you like, and then guess what? Tell the creators you love their game, because that just makes them want to make more games, and then they'll want to talk to you, and then you can maybe make another game together. So get out there, communicate, be a person. It's a really important thing.
I would definitely second the Twitter thing. So many of our devs now are on Twitter, and I mean, yes, you say LinkedIn is another great place. Great place for educational-based questions, but Twitter's a good one too. And most folks, if you reach out to them with those educational questions, with those things that you have, most folks are going to actually want to respond and want to talk to you, because not many of the devs have like people reaching out and talking to them, unless like these huge games they've been working on for years, et cetera, et cetera. Just to kind of piggyback on what Jay said, I would say if you have the opportunity, obviously when we're not in the middle of COVID and we're able to go out and have conventions again and do those things, is get out to the conventions. Go to one of the best ones that I can recommend is PAX South down in San Antonio, because it's actually a relatively cheap price point to go. They have a lot of indie studios that are there, and people that will just talk to you, and it's such a great one to do. And I know that there's so many other ones here, and there are ones out here in Austin, obviously, but just to talk to people. Again, that communication, see, it's all related. It all keeps coming up.
That's good. All right, Garin, are you on Twitter? What's your handle? At Darren Garin?
Mine is a little bit simpler. It's just Garin RK, GARINRK. So, and real quick about what students can do is make friends who are into the same things that you are. Make like-minded friends who play the same games you do, or different games, and that that little microcosm of game taste and aesthetic will, I think, be very, very beneficial to just them as a game developer. So make friends who are into the same things you are.
Seems like in the gaming world there are some pretty outgoing communities out there that are easy to thrust yourself into. Okay, last question here. What last words of advice would you give a student who is interested in working in tech or game development?
I am more than happy to take this one first. Don't be afraid to change your mind. I am like the poster child for that, I swear. Just do what you feel you want to do, and if you don't like it, you can change your mind. You know, I didn't come into the games industry until I was in my mid-30s. And I enjoyed playing games, but I never actually thought of it as an actual career. So have fun, you know, just take in all the lessons that you can, take in the world, like learn who you are, learn who your voice is, and you know, just it's okay, change your mind. It is, I promise.
And you know, life is a journey. Don't be afraid of failure. Everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their own ups and downs. And you know, just you will fall, you will stumble, but it won't be the end. Just keep on trucking.
And to build on top of that, don't be afraid of failure. It's okay to fail, but learn from the failure, because that way you won't make the same failure twice, and you'll turn everything into a positive nature. And that's, for me, the number one piece of advice I would give. Always look for the positive side of something, because the person you're talking to may not know what you're talking about and assume the worst. So always try and be positive, always try and be constructive, and above all, remain optimistic, because just having a conversation with somebody can brighten their day, and that little bit can just send waves of positivity throughout. So always be optimistic, always be positive, and just keep up that, you know, high-end inspiration. It's really important.
That's awesome, guys. I hope a lot of people see this and really gain a lot of wisdom from what you guys are saying. I think you have a lot to bestow.
I'm gonna be impressed if the teens sat through this entire hour. Like, good job, guys. Like,
You can watch
bravo
it.
to you.
You can watch it at 2x. That's what I would do while you're brushing your teeth.
Nice.
Subtitles on too, right? You know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was really great to hear everyone's input. I felt like I took notes, and it's not like anything that I haven't really heard already, but I was honestly just so excited to hear the emphasis of soft skills. I think that, you know, middle school and high school students need to hear that more than anything. It's just the fact that we can, you know, and Bailey, you might be able to speak to that. Like, they could get lost in all the minutia of like school, just getting assignments done, and really at the heart of it, it is what is those skills that are going to be transferable, like you said, Allison, to their future career in the workforce. So that's really, really great. I really thank you all. And, you know, that completes the interview. I really want to thank you, Allison, Garin, Jay, Bailey, for joining us today to discuss the career pathways in the game development industry. So we really appreciate your time. And for those that are watching this video as well, please give us a thumbs up on our YouTube channel if you enjoyed this video. And if it's your first time here with us, please subscribe to our channel so you can get like alerts for the future amazing content that we are developing all the time with Workforce Solutions Capital Area. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay safe and healthy, and it's good to see y'all.